Good morning. Good morning, Grant. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I like your background.
Thank you.
Good.
Reba, we still can't hear you. By no means am I a Zoom expert, Reba, but I think your computer is not properly reading your headphones and your headset.
So you're driving down tomorrow, Grant? Is that what Reba said?
Yes. We're still not even sure what time we're in tomorrow, so it'll either be an early morning drive, but we're willing to bet that it won't be till noon or after. But it's an easy drive.
Do you have any indication for how long you'll be there?
For sure, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's some indication that they'll draw us back into session in the end, next week for the end of the month. But I know a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to get it done this week. They don't want to be there in the first place. So we'll see. We'll see.
Do you have a cool mask? I feel like you guys need like themed masks or something.
Well, so my wife and I were talking about that this morning, and some of the masks I wanted. I'm one of those that I'm very serious at my job, but I like to have a little bit of fun. So I wanted like the biker goatee, the long handlebar mustache, or something that's at least adds a little bit of humor to it.
My husband has a Batman mask, and he loves wearing it. He feels so cool.
So one of my friends down there, a colleague and roommate actually, is Mark Batnick, and we call him Batman. So we're like, you have to get a Batman mask. You just have to.
It's funny. You're gonna do it. Have fun with it. Kelly Kaiser is one of our staffers. We joke she'll wear like a ski mask, like a full like ski helmet. So gonna do it. Gotta have a little bit of fun, right?
Right.
See those. Exciting. No, I am not.
Good morning.
Good morning. Did Reba leave? Reba, can we hear you yet? We were saying in our last meeting, if you go over the mute button on the bottom left of your screen, there's a little arrow caret and you can choose a microphone. Try that.
Am I on?
Yes. Hi, Renee. How are you? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
There you are.
I'm here. Okay. I feel like I was doing the same thing and getting different results. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. Thanks for your patience. Wow, the numbers climbing. I think we have over 54 people registered.
That's great. And Reba, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of our panelists has a committee conference meeting or something that she'll be out of at 10:30. So I think we'll have one jumping on midway through the
just
call.
got a couple emailed that people are having a tough time logging on.
Unfortunately, we got word late last night that Senator Ellman, because of a caucus meeting, would not be able to join us even at the 10:30 unless things change. We had a lot of last minute. Oops, you know what? I've got a member calling me. I'm sure it's about this. So let me just.
Yeah, I'm having some people are having problems getting in. Tom and Christine just messaged me. Don't see Amy here yet, though. Nope, hang on. It's a spotlight. This is Kelly. There should be volume, Mike. No one's just speaking yet. Can you hear me now?
You know, Representative Worley, since we have you on the call right now, I'm about to put a statement that the Naperville Chamber Board debated on and voted on this morning, supporting the decoupling of the Naperville area and DuPage County from the Cook County and Chicago region, supporting for us being able to implement sort of local guidelines for reopening, and for following Mayor Cherico's lead and the DuPage mayors and managers' lead in adopting a plan that is in the works by Choose DuPage and will be presented to the DuPage County Board. So I'm just going to cut and paste that statement into the chat window so that everybody can see it, and that will be coming up in just about 30 seconds. So thanks everybody for everybody.
Ian, that's great to hear. I know locally we can, we're not Chicago, we're not Decatur. Between a partnership, Edward Hospital, DuPage County Health Department, we can come up with a plan. And I know DuPage mayors and managers and the city of Naperville are working proactively to do that. So that's great to hear that the chamber is on board with seeing what we can do locally.
And Zoom wouldn't let me paste the whole message at once, so I split it into two parts. But you can kind of get the gist there. And for those of you who are on the call, you'll notice there's a bit of a call to action there. We're asking that people reach out to their elected representatives, and this isn't just Representative Worley. This would include your county board members. This would include city leaders. I know in talking to the mayor directly, if we're all speaking on the same page, if people are asking for the same thing, that can help us hopefully get decoupled and get our businesses moving forward again.
Awesome.
Check out this stunning display in the sky over Nashville, Tennessee. 140 drones launched from Vanderbilt Stadium to honor healthcare workers and first responders who've been serving their city both during the pandemic and in the aftermath, of course, about March 3rd.
There's a lot of feedback going on with somebody.
I'm shocked. Thank you.
Somebody's got sound going on in the background. By the way, I just want to address a point. Ray is correct. Choose DuPage's plan is still in draft format. They expect to have it ready for a vote by county board. We discussed this issue with the mayor's office yesterday or over the weekend, and our determination as a chamber leadership team was to still get on the same page with the mayor and support it conceptually, because we understand that the plan includes a reopening of DuPage businesses before the end of the month.
Yeah, Ian, I sent that message to you just because I saw Christine sent me something about that yesterday. You have to
sure.
be careful about using the word the Choose DuPage plan. As a member
Correct.
of the committee, we've not voted on it. So I support the plan, but it's not. So technically, it's really DuPage County's plan that was done in coordination with Choose DuPage. But I just want to make sure that you don't. Members of Choose DuPage board might get upset that they never saw it and using that language. That's all. So.
Okay, thanks, Ray. I didn't realize it was a private message too, so the group has no idea what I'm talking about. But
I was looking. I will get started. I do know, like I said, we've got a few other people jumping on here. I'm Kaylin Risvold, President and CEO of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Last minute, but late and great, and it's going to be wonderful. Before we get started, I do want to call out to say thank you to our local elected officials who have joined us here today. I see Councilwoman Patty Gustins here, Councilman Kevin Coyne, and Mayor Steve Chirico is here, I believe, as well. And I see Councilman Pat Kelly. So if I missed any of you, I apologize, but thank you. This shows great leadership from you all for joining in on the conversation. We're really grateful and lucky to have this conversation. That being said, we do have Representative Grant Worley with us here today. He is from the Illinois House of Representatives from District 41. And we will have Illinois House of Representative Amy Grant joining us as well from District 42. We did have a few other people confirm, and they had to back out last minute. Things are constantly changing, and I believe a caucus meeting came up and some other things. So we have been in contact with many of your local legislators and wanted to just give a great welcome to Grant. So thank you so much for joining us here today and really listening to our concerns and having this conversation with us. You head back tomorrow for a very abbreviated spring session. So we wanted to kind of just get started to say, you know, when you go back tomorrow, are you expecting it to be all about reopening? Are there other things on the docket? You know, what are you looking forward to tomorrow and the rest of the week?
So first off, let me just start by thanking the Naperville Chamber for putting this together. It is last minute, but as you know, I'm sort of used to that in Springfield. Things happen last minute quite frequently. I all understand we're pulled in many different directions as legislators. As a member of the House Republican leadership team, you know, media requests, interview requests, things like that. So I understand people's schedules are busy. But I want to be crystal clear that my first responsibility is to the residents of the 41st District and the business owners and the businesses within the 41st District. So I appreciate you putting this together. It's of utmost importance that I not only am given the opportunity to let you know what's going on or what we think is going to go on, but also more importantly, to hear from you. What concerns do you want to have addressed when we're down in Springfield? We are down there for 3 days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We do not know what time we start tomorrow yet. There is some discussion on us returning the following week, but I know that there is significant pushback on doing that. So it could be a fast and furious 3 days. We are not heading down for a regular session. This is a special session. And because it's been declared a special session by Speaker Madigan and President Harmon, we are limited in the topics in which we can discuss. And they are basically 7 things. It's the COVID response, it's the state budget, economic recovery, a constitutional amendment, arguments for and against, so that's dealing with the graduated income tax, anything that was expected to be repealed prior to June 1st of 2021, the 2020 general election process, how that's going to look, and the hospital reassessment program. So we will be talking about. What we will not be talking about are things like ethics reform. I know we've all been absorbed by this COVID, but we're not hearing the names Tom Cullerton, Louis Arroyo, Martin Sandoval. I mean, the FBI still has an ongoing investigation, and Springfield needs to get cleaned up. We're not talking about fair maps. We're not talking about property tax relief. So what are we talking about when it does come to reopening? Many of you are aware as small business owners that on Friday evening, the governor went through the emergency rulemaking process and declared by emergency rule that if you open your business in violation of his executive order, that it's now a Class A misdemeanor. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but a Class A misdemeanor is punishable by up to and or including a fine of up to $2,500 and 364 days in jail. So not only is there some question about is his executive authority, can he exceed it after 30 days, but now if you do so, you could face criminal prosecution. That seems a little strong-handed to me. And JCAR is meeting on Wednesday. I know that the Republican members of JCAR are not in support of that emergency rule. And the Democrat members of JCAR, so JCAR, Joint Committee on Administrative Rule, there's 3 members from each party in each chamber. And it's evenly split, so there's not a majority, but it takes a super majority to change anything. So we need some like-minded Democratic colleagues to step up and say, this is a bridge too far. That meeting is on Wednesday, and we'll see what comes of that. I do know that inboxes and mailboxes are full of all members of JCAR. One of my good friends, Keith Wheeler, he's actually one of my roommates down there. He's our co-chair. And he has never seen so much response to a single issue ever in JCAR. So that's one thing to watch out for on Wednesday. The 5-step plan is outlined by the governor. We're not sure if we're going to be given the opportunity to debate any of those points on merits. So the 4 areas, I'm one that believes those are way too large. When you look at Naperville and DuPage County, we are not Cook County. We should not be lumped in. We don't know if we're going to be given the opportunity to address that. The 14-day that all other states and the federal government are using out as a metric to see when we can go to the next phase. In Illinois, it's 28 days. We don't know if we're going to be able to address that. We're hoping that the governor will say it's a 28-day rolling average, meaning when we get to the next phase, it's not 28 days from that point, it's 28 days of data, even if you have to go back into a previous phase. So I'm hoping it's a rolling average. That would be a step in the right direction if the governor would come out and say that, but we don't know if that's going to happen. The 30-day executive order. There are lawsuits flying fast and furious. I know that makes the lawyers happy, but I hate to litigate when we should be legislating. So does he have the authority to extend 30 days? Is that indefinitely? There should be, for a quick reminder of civics, we're a co-equal branch of government. It's the executive, judicial, and the legislative. We've been rendered irrelevant up until Wednesday. So hopefully we can get some legislative action on that. And that's a serious concern, whether it's this governor or any other governor, that you just can't rule unilaterally without at least talking to the legislative branch. So, I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into more stuff. The budget is a massive concern. We're $8 billion out of balance right now. We don't know how that looks right now as far as where the cuts are going to be. When we're looking at the state budget, it's about a $42 billion budget. We have what's called above the line and below the line expenses. Above the line expenses are things that we by law have to spend money on. Consent decrees, court orders, and that's about $22 billion of the budget. So below the line is about $20 billion. And so if we have to cut $8 billion out of a $20 billion discretionary spending, it's going to be brutal and it's going to be harsh. Some of the cuts have been needed for a while, but how we balance that and keep social service, it's going to force us to prioritize. And that's a good thing to me. I work closely with a lot of special needs for intellectually and developmentally challenged groups, and how we fund them is quite honestly embarrassment. So that to me would be a high priority spend. So it's going to be a very interesting session. You are going to be able to follow us on ilga.gov. It is by law required to be streamed online. However, the bandwidth is going to be almost impossible to get through. So I'm going to try to record as much as I can with my iPad, iPhone, laptop, and try to keep people informed that way. But pay attention. I'm always available. Some of you have my cell phone numbers. I love to hear from people when I'm on the House floor. I don't always respond because, as you can imagine, we're pulled in a million different directions. But it's going to be a fast and furious 3 days, very limited in breadth, but very, very, very important as to how our state moves forward.
And can you talk about the constituent emails? We've asked, we sent out a message to our members saying, we are fighting for you, but you should email your representatives as well. Is that important to you?
It is absolutely important to me. Emails, phone calls. No, I'll be honest with you, it's overwhelming right now. It's not just emails and phone calls. It's direct messages on social media. It is physically impossible for me and my staff to respond to them all. I am trying, and we will hopefully eventually get to them all. But that's why it's another reason why it's so important for me to be on this call. Like I said, I am pulled in many, many different directions right now, but hearing and sharing this information with you is of utmost importance. So keep emailing, keep phone calling. And I know some people's inboxes are full and their voicemails are full, and it is more now than ever. It is critical for elected officials to hear from the people we're elected to represent. I'm hearing from people that said, hey, I never voted for you, never would vote for you, but I need help with IDES. The unemployment system is an absolute mess. And it doesn't matter what party you're in or if you voted for me or not, I'm here to help. And that's something that I can't reach out to everybody. So those communications are massively important.
So that, talking about calling, Eileen typed in the chat here, what are we supposed to do about people who you're calling IDES and no one's answering the phones? How can people are supposedly hired additional employees. How are we supposed to get those answers?
So that's the number one issue my office is working on. And I don't know if everyone on this call has met Maureen, who works in my office here, but she's an absolute rock star. I could not do this job without her. That's pretty much what she does 24/7. And it is a grind. Some people can get in and then never heard back from IDES, but keep calling. We are trying to take these on, I hate to say it, on a first come, first serve basis, and we're also trying to find ones that, maybe there's special needs or there's extenuating circumstances for medical reasons, things like that. So we are trying to prioritize and triage as best we can. But IEDS, it was a 7-week delay in getting 1099 employees and gig economy workers even the ability to apply for unemployment. And then the day they can, there's a data security breach. So now we're trying to figure out, well, whose data was compromised? How much data was compromised? Is the state going to get them a credit report so they can figure out what's going on? So these are all things that are very much in flux. We're working hard every day to make sure that we get these answers and we get solutions. But I'm asking for patience. We're limited in staff. We're limited in daylight, and it's a challenge, but we're doing our best to work our way through it.
And I know we had a chat comment in the chat about not having anyone from the other side of the aisle, not having any Democrats come in. We found out late last night they do have a caucus call. I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. We debated rescheduling and we wanted to keep it. We think it's important to continue these conversations and have them. We do have Mimi Cowan on the line. She's here. She works for Senator Ellman and she is taking notes. Reba, who's our Director of Government Affairs, is in constant communication with both sides, with all of our representatives. So we'll make sure they hear your stories. And that's kind of what my next question is. So what do you need from us? We're saying we need businesses to open. We're hurting. What can we do to move the needle, to affect change?
Your advocacy. So when the chamber saying that I hear there's, and I don't know if it's, Ian, if it's official, that you want to separate from Chicago and we want to sort of do things on our own, but we need advocacy for that. No one wants to see anybody put in harm's way. We want to rely on our medical experts and Edward Hospital. I mean, we have world-class facilities around here that can help steer us and guide us. But to lump us in from an economic recovery standpoint with Decatur, Carbondale, Chicago, Rockford, makes no logical sense. So continue your advocacy. Also, it's important that I hear, what can I do to help you? So I know some of our restaurant owners, there's a program called Cocktails for a Cause. Right now, if a restaurant wants to sell their in-house mixed cocktail, whether it be a martini or sangria or whatever, by law they can't. And so they're prohibited. And I know how much of a big impact that is on their sales dollars. And unfortunately, it's a complaint-based problem to where if you find a restaurant that's doing it and nobody complains, they can continue to do it. But if one person, for whatever reason, says, no, they're doing that, it's illegal, they shouldn't be doing that, the Illinois Liquor Control Commission is literally coming in the back door and shutting these organizations down. So Cocktails for a Cause is something that we can do to help the restaurant owners. I'm full support of that, even if just on a temporary basis. But what else can, I need to hear from you. What else can we do? Colbert Custom Framing. I don't know if they're on the call or not, but it's really hard to pick out a custom frame online and go in and, without going in to pick it up. Why can't they be open and have people come in with a mask, with whatever proper precautions there are into their place of business, pick out their work and get a beautiful piece of work to put on the wall and also, support our local business. So to me, they're a couple phases away from that. But it's an example like that we should be advocating for that type of good, business behavior. And it sounds like the chamber with their letter is doing that, but I need to hear your stories. I need to hear what else I can be doing to help you.
And this is not, we just got 2 questions, but you are not a quiet group. I know many of you on the call, so please throw some questions in there for me as well. Eileen asked again, how confident are you that we will be able to separate from Cook County? The governor seems adamant that he is going to keep it in this region. So what can we do?
So I got a quick laugh out of quiet because I've been called many things, but quiet is not one of them. I'm not confident at all that they're going to change the boundaries. Sadly, and maybe this is just my perception because I'm in it every day, this is falling along partisan lines. That it would be, we're not standing up for our governor if we take a stance against something that he put into place. That's not to me, that's not the correct answer. We need to be doing what is right for our community and for our constituents. Like I said at the beginning of this, my first responsibility is to you, the members of the 41st district, and even those that don't live in the district. So I'm going to advocate for it, but I hold little hope that we're going to see that change. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to stop fighting like hell for it.
Christina asked, how is the safety measures that are needed to reopen being addressed to protect employees and business owners' health and liability?
Well, health is a little bit more easier than liability. Health, one of the things that came out of the 5-step plan is that employees must be provided with PPE. I mean, the masks, the gloves, sanitation supplies, things like that. Now, liability is a very big concern. Early on, the governor made, through emergency rule, he changed work comp rules that would say that if anybody tested positive for COVID, that it would be based on the fact that they got it on the job. He can't do that by executive order or through emergency rule. So that was quickly struck down in the courts. But there is some liability concerns as to what happens if a place of business does reopen, isn't following proper protocol, what their liability is. I'm sure we have many insurance agents, at least on the call. If not, we know how to get a hold of them. We're trying to work with them to find out what we can do from an indemnification standpoint. But it's going to be through insurance and then also through work comp.
Sure. And then when we're talking about opening businesses, has the conversation also come to schools and childcare? Because you can't open businesses without schools and childcare, but that's an important part for many of us.
It is. Now, we're fortunate to have some awesome executives here at 203, 204, and 200. I'm in pretty constant communication with them. For those that don't know, I am also married to a 4th grade teacher, so I see firsthand what our teachers are going through. My wife is a professional educator, and I call it a moonshot, what they did. They had to one day leave their school where they're all professional classroom teachers and all of a sudden do it online, which is something that if you know my wife, she's not exactly technologically savvy. It was a dramatic change for her, but they've adjusted. I have a son who's a sophomore at Naperville Central, and they're adjusting. But I can assure you that if they have to go back in the fall with remote education, it probably will not go very well for all concerned. So I know that we're discussing how do we do that? Do we alter schedules? Do we have remote classrooms? There's 203 came out with a online PE. So if you're doing, certain activities at home that's how they're going to do PE. We're starting to see some of our universities, and they'd be a great example to see what they're doing as far as reopen. Notre Dame just announced that they're reopening. Kind of pains me to hear that Notre Dame's leading the way on that, but I digress. But North Central College is another place. How are they going to do it? And we need to be, once again, working collaboratively with them and take best practices. But I am hopeful, and I'm working hard and pushing hard that we are able to have in-classroom education in the fall. As far as daycare goes, you can't have one without the other. We need to have those facilities open. So what does that look like? What are the protocols there? Social distancing. What happens if somebody tests positive in that situation? So these are all the things that I'm sure we'll be working on hard between now and fall. There's some serious concerns, but I think everybody's wanting to move in the direction of let's open up.
Sure. Ray wrote in, would it be helpful if our city council had an official statement of support for decoupling and/or local control?
Absolutely. They're elected officials too. And it's times like this that leadership is hard. You have to make decisions and you have to put your neck out a little bit. And you speak for 148,000 residents of the city of Naperville, and there should be a very robust, discussion on it. And maybe not everyone's going to agree, but I think it's short-sighted to just say the governor can handle all of this because, I was with the governor at first, and I believe the science that he's using. I want to trust but verify. And I think they need to take a stand for all of us here in Naperville. They should at least have the debate.
Councilman Coyne wrote in, do you anticipate Illinois will seek a federal bailout? Would a progressive income tax fix that budget hole?
Oh boy. So there is some discussion in this most recent bill that passed through the Federal House of Representatives of federal bailout money being available through the feds at low interest. So I am all in support of finding a way for the feds to help us with the COVID response that the state has had to make, and local, the city of Naperville, DuPage County, Will County, there's clearly some help needed there. But for the feds to come in and sort of wallpaper over Illinois' long storied fiscal woes, I have a serious problem with. And to be clear, those fiscal woes have been caused by both parties. This is not a partisan issue, but we all know where we are as a state financially. And to just come in and say, feds bail us out, that doesn't solve our problems. To me, it's the wrong way to go, because it puts the debt on our kids and grandkids and future generations. We need to solve these problems now. As far as the graduated income tax, and I'm sure there are many business owners on this call right now that cringe when they hear that, because you are struggling right now to figure out how to pay employees, how to pay your rent, how to pay your mortgage, how to pay for your equipment loans, things like that. So to add yet another cost potentially of a graduated income tax right now is it's wrong-headed. It's the wrong thing to do. We need to get our fiscal house in order in the state of Illinois before we ask for more revenues from the hardworking residents. We all know of the out-migration. People are realizing now that in most jobs, you can pretty much work from anywhere. More and more people are realizing that. So if people of that level that are going to get hit by a graduated income tax can do their job anywhere, I think they're giving serious consideration to leaving the state of Illinois.
Do you support local cities taking control of their areas if Springfield continues to put up a barrier? It sounds like cities and businesses are going to be forced to make that choice.
Yeah, so I would rather see it done on a local level. And so I don't want to see single businesses acting rogue. I think that's a bad idea. But I think if it's in concert with a geographical area that is smaller than the 4 regions outlined by the governor, that's a step in the right direction. Springfield can do their own thing. Rockford can do their own thing. I think Naperville can do their own thing, but we need to be cognizant of Warrenville and Wheaton and Lisle and Plainfield. We don't want to be two totally separate things. And this is one of the things we're seeing around our state borders. Those communities that are bordering Wisconsin and Iowa and even Indiana, they already had a problem with people leaving the state for lower motor fuel and things like that. But now that they're open, they're literally zipping across the state line, getting a haircut, and coming back. That does nothing to help us with COVID. Nothing. So we need an absolutely a more local, logical approach to this.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quickly on that point. And I know about half the listeners here heard me allude to this before the call officially started, but if you scroll up in the group chat, you'll notice that there's a lengthy statement that was approved by the Naperville Chamber Board this morning. So this is an official position now of the Naperville Chamber. There's a call to action for members of the community to reach out to elected representatives, especially at the county level, but also this would be your state representatives and your city council representatives. Mayor Cherico sits on the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, and they have endorsed a plan that will be put out very shortly by Choose DuPage, which is the economic development advocacy organization for DuPage County. I won't get into the nitnoy details on this call, but our call to action is for you to go ahead and support that plan. Let it be known that you support that plan. DNA is on board with this. Mayor Cherico through the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference is on board with this. We're on board with it. And that's our call to action for everybody who's on this conference right now.
And I did type in, continue to type in your questions and share your stories. And Celeste, if you don't mind, I might call you out in a second here. One thing that we want to continue to hear from is our restaurants. And I was on a call with Celeste the other day and was talking about, what does this percentage open? How does this affect your business? And I wanted her to be able to kind of share the story of, does 25% occupancy help your business, or does that hurt your business?
That would hurt my business. And there's 12 Aurelios in Indiana. 2 have opened, and they're not seeing much dining room business at all. So, and the other ones chose not to open. They put out statements just for concern. And even at 50% one of my main concerns is trying to get some of the employees back, the servers and the bartenders. If we can only be open at 30 or 50%, well, they have to consider, okay, they're on unemployment now. How much are they going to be able to make when they come back to work? Is that going to be enough? You know, we have one employee that was a bartender and a server. He's now a shift manager and a driver and a carryout person, and he still filed for unemployment. Like, I don't know how that's going to work out for him, but because he's still making money. And we compared, because we're not taking cash, so we compared because we know how many tips he's making, and it's basically even. But to support, you know, a lot of our business too at this time of the year is group parties, you know, baptisms, wedding, you know, rehearsal dinners. Yeah, and if we can't have more than 10 people in a party group, it's not going to make a lot of sense for those servers and bartenders to want to come back. You know, I've been in contact with a few of them, and they say they will, but I don't think because they want to get out of the house. But I think once they look at the financial implications, I think that might be a different story.
Yeah, are you, Celeste, are you hearing also with the $600 additional from the feds? I mean, you know, I have a son that works in the restaurant industry down in Tuscaloosa, and I mean, he was making more on unemployment than he was
right
his managerial job at a restaurant.
Yeah, that's a big factor. That is a big factor. And I've heard different opinions about that some of that might have to be paid back. And I don't think the people that are getting that money realize that might not be theirs for forever. So, and then also on our standpoint too, like our unemployment rate was very low. And now it's just going to, that tax is going to skyrocket for us. And that's going to be a difficult thing to absorb as well.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about that in some of our working groups, but I don't see any action being taken on that in the next 3 days. But that's a concern that we're hearing not only from the restaurant industry, but all industries on what's this going to do to our UI rate. And that's, right. We're working on it.
Yeah, and then the ESPL, or is it EPSLA? That seems to be changing all the time. So that's really hard to follow. You know, if somebody can't come to work because they can't get childcare, that qualifies, and then they get 10 days paid leave, and then possibly another 10 days. So that's going to be another thing that will be hard to absorb.
Yeah. So I'm willing to wager that these are some of the issues that we're going to be around over the summer down in Springfield trying to figure out. We can't wait till November or the next General Assembly in January to get the solutions to these problems, because as a former small business owner, I understand you can deal with bad news. You can't deal with uncertainty, and these things when you're trying to reopen and look at costs. I understand that we need to address these issues sooner rather than later.
Right. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. And in the meantime, we're replacing the carpet and redoing the wood floors. And my husband's like, why are you spending this money? But we're closed. So, I mean, we're, closed for carry out and delivery only. So
CapEx is really hard right now.
Thank you, Celeste. And off that, Mike typed in and asked, speaking of unemployment, are we going to see an extension of the extra money for those on unemployment?
That might be a bridge too far for a lot of people. We need to work. I thought it was a little aggressive when this first came out, what the numbers were and how long the extension was. So I think that's a sort of a take it as it comes issue. Right now, I would not be supportive of that, because I do see that we're trending in the right direction. I do see other states that are opening up, and we want to help those that need help, but to provide I don't want to say an easy out, but a loan when one's really may not be needed is probably not the way to go. I'm looking at the data from the other states that are opening up, and we need to, keep an eye on that. I don't want to be on the tip of this spear, but I also don't want to be a laggard. And right now, Illinois is dead last.
Right. And that the CARES extra money that ends July 31st, I believe.
Don't hold me on dates.
Yeah, I believe
We're gonna have to
so.
look at that. Yeah.
Alexis asked if we open up earlier than our surrounding areas, assuming cases are higher and continue to rise in some of our surrounding areas, doesn't that increase our risk as patrons and visitors?
It does, and that's where we need to keep, testing. We're seeing more and more testing. That's a good thing. We need to keep science and health in obviously in the forefront, but I also don't want to be held hostage by fear. And we need to take positive steps in reopening. And if we see that we're having a setback, well, then we slow it down or ratchet it back a little bit. This is a very dynamic process. And as business owners, you have to be nimble. And as human beings, if I want to go have a cocktail somewhere, which many of you know I like to do, but it's not safe, I'm not going to do it. So it's common sense really needs to rule the day here, along with good data that's shared. One of my knocks on the governor is he's not, or he wasn't, and he's getting better at it, but share the data. We're all intelligent people. I know in Naperville that there are some people that can look at this data in, whether they're doctors or whatever, they know what's going on here. I'm going to rely on them.
Okay. And I do believe Representative Grant is on the call. Did I see you pop on there? I believe, let me double check. Sorry, there's so much happening in Zoom.
Yeah, I don't.
You are unmuted by host. Did you?
Oh, there we go, Amy.
Okay. Hi, Grant.
Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you joining us, especially before heading back down tomorrow.
Yes, I'm sorry I got this messed up, but go ahead.
It's okay. We were asking about, and Grant talked a little bit about this as well, about the 7 things you're covering over the next 3 days. What do you envision seeing the priorities in the next 3 days in this abbreviated, short, condensed session that you're going to work to push for?
Well, I don't know what Grant has said, but probably very similar to what Grant has said. And of course, we have to have a budget. I think it's important that we bring up the topic of the referendum question about fair tax, and that's not going to be a good thing. And I do hope that, I think as a caucus we spoke of it, and I think that we're going to push to try to have that removed from the ballot. Jay Carr, of course, Grant, I think, is on that committee. I don't think it's right of the governor to be able to go around doing a Class A misdemeanor on people. It's sort of like a police state. No one likes that, especially in the United States. He has no business doing that. I think that there's we should have some property tax relief. I do know that mayors and managers are concerned about the LGDF funding. I think that needs to be funded because if it's not funded, we're going to lose out on our services. And if it's not funded, the homeowners will just find more money taken out of their paychecks in form of a property tax.
So Amy, can I jump in real quick? LGDF is Local Government Distributed Fund. That is the portion of sales tax dollars and other revenues that people pay in the local communities. The state collects it, and then they're supposed to give it back to the local municipality. So LGDF, I don't know if Mayor Cherico is still on the line, but that is a major concern to our local units of government, because if they don't get that money, they're going to have to get it somewhere else or make even more draconian cuts.
Right, and I know that doesn't it go to the DuPage County, and then isn't DuPage County the one that doles it out?
It might vary by home rule. I think Naperville gets it directly from the state.
Okay, all right. Well, that's very important that that happens, and I'm not going to vote for a budget unless this LGDF is completely funded the way it should be. So I'm not for having I just looked at my property tax bill. My husband took it and put it in his backpack, And I said, honey, let me look at this property tax bill. So, you know, I live in a small bedroom house. It's, you know, I pay a lot in taxes, and everyone else is concerned about it. We had a task force this past summer, a property tax relief task force that really accomplished nothing. You know, we'll just see what happens. We'll see what kind of attitude or behavior is on the other side of the aisle, how quickly they want to get things done. But I do think that, you know, everything that I have just talked about is important, and probably more, but I'd be here forever. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. And we did want to share some of our member stories as well, you know, just be able to give this a forum for our members to be able to tell you how this is affecting us. I know we did a survey 2 weeks ago talking about how 32% of businesses don't have 2 months of reserves. And we just did another survey that will be released later this week that we closed yesterday. And people's number one concern, spoiler alert on survey results, but people's number one concern is, the business's number one concern is people coming into their stores, making sure that the customers feel safe. So are there guidelines for our retail, restaurants, for all of these different businesses so that they can make sure that the customers know it's okay to come back? Because like Celeste was saying, you know, those 2 Aurelios that opened in Indiana, they're not seeing this huge influx.
So this is where I would look for leadership from your statewide organizations, Illinois Retail Merchants Association, the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Restaurant Association, and have that trickle down. I mean, I know Caterpillar is working on how they get their manufacturing back up and going. And so they're taking CDC guidelines and they're trying to customize it. But this is where I'm going to rely heavily on the industry experts to tell us what those best practices are. And then it's going to take, you know, at the local level, the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce sharing what's working, what's not working. What kind of marketing is NDP and the Downtown Naperville Alliance going to do on safe shopping in Naperville? So this is where it's, you know, it's one of the things I love about this community is we're going to figure this out. We are. And then it's how do we communicate that and make sure that people feel safe, because that's of utmost importance. If you're open and I don't want to go there, you know, that's a problem. So it's
well, you know, case in point, I'm the one that does the grocery shopping in my house. Okay, case in point, Sunday, 4:30 in the afternoon, raining like cats and dogs. I go into my Jewel. It is a madhouse. People are bumping into one another. That's how close we all are. Downtown Wheaton, Marabella's. It's a little shoe store. Well, they have a pretty big space, but they're social distancing. There's only 10 people allowed into the shoe store at one time. They have masks and they have sanitation for you. I don't see that happening at Jewel. So, I mean, the discrepancies are rampant. That's all I have to say about it.
Another issue that we've seen, and I mean, the Chamber's a nonprofit as well, is the hit that nonprofits are taking. And I believe Jason from Little Friends is on here if you wanted to unmute and talk, just share your story about what it's like as a nonprofit. You know, we already have a lean budget. There's not much more to cut. And then you look at less income, less people donating. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's really hard for the nonprofits. And what else can we do to support them? Jason, are you on still? Or any other nonprofit want to speak to that? Unmute you.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, certainly if she was expecting meals and Angelise was...
You're really quiet, Jason.
We want to make sure that we're, thank you for the heads up. No, that's very helpful.
Okay.
And this is something where I'm so thankful that Tony thought of us. I mean, literally, they are so close to us.
I think he's on a phone call.
Okay. Trying to figure out what he was talking about. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other nonprofits who want to jump in here. I feel like that's an industry that we should focus. There's so much that needs our focus, you know?
Right. Whether it be Little Friends or, I'm seeing something on chat here. Loaves and Fishes, Kids Matter, all these wonderful nonprofits that do great work. And you're absolutely correct. You know, their finances are going to take a hit, not only from a donation standpoint, but we don't know what the state's going to be able to provide. But that's where important that the state has to reprioritize what is truly important. You know, just yesterday, 39 of my colleagues, we issued a letter about the social, emotional, mental impact that this self-isolation is having. These are this is a life-changing event for a lot of people, and not in a good way. So what are we going to do to support them? That's something that when this budget comes up in the next 3 days, what's in there? I don't know if I'm literally going to have time, Amy and I are going to have time to review that, but we need to make sure that that safety net is still there and we prioritize. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that this isn't going to cause some mergers, some nonprofits that maybe aren't as successful as others. They may not survive. And while that's heartbreaking from a dollar expense standpoint, it may be for the best that we finally, that we get to a point where we're supporting those that are truly being productive and active and doing the right things. And I'm talking statewide, not necessarily here in Naperville.
Right.
There's a lot of waste fraud going on with some of our nonprofits throughout the state, and that just simply needs to stop.
I can speak to Loaves and Fishes. I'm on their board, and they've seen a tremendous uptick in grocery, requests for groceries from, because people are out of work. So they have limited volunteers working. The store is not open, so they're doing curbside delivery, so to speak. People pull up, they just put it in the trunk. They did implement a virtual food donation, so you can just go online and donate. You pick out the groceries you want, basically, and that alleviates people having to drop off food from their home. I've been working with 360. They were trying to put together an online fundraiser. They were looking at doing a bingo event, so that's kind of on hold right now. They need to look at licensing. And then I've also spoke to Hesed House, because I had offered to send over some pizzas prior to everybody moving into the hotels. They couldn't accept the pizzas in the hotels, but I got a call on Friday, and yesterday we sent over dinner for 165 people. Like, they have 165 adults back at the facility, and they don't know how they're going to feed them. I mean, so it's a problem everywhere.
Let's see. Yeah, and Patty wrote in that Kids Matter has seen an increase in crisis calls, not just from kids, but also parents.
Right.
And Adam wrote in, why not adopt policies from other states? Why do we have to do so much of our own research?
I'm a huge fan of not reinventing the wheel in many areas, whether it's making Illinois more business friendly. But this is where the collaboration comes in. I mentioned the state agencies, but it's also at the federal level. I think stealing other people's work when it comes to good governance is a good thing, and we need to do more of that, honestly, in the state of Illinois. For some reason, we like to be unique, and it usually doesn't end well.
Stephanie said, if safe business operations are announced by some organization, who enforces that? How can businesses feel safe even if they are operating according to guidance? Many industries, especially restaurants, already have sanitary and behavioral operations in place. How different are these new requirements?
Great question, and enforcement's going to be, that's a valid concern. It's going to be, I would say, the employees, your frontline workers, are going to have to step that up. We see the no shirt, no shoes, no service, no mask. Some people are adamantly opposed to wearing a mask, so it's going to be a challenge. Hopefully, we don't have to get law enforcement involved, but that is always the last line. And it's also keeping people informed. I mean, that's why it's vitally important for me to be on this call. It's a two-way street. We have to share this information, and we have to hold each other accountable. And I know here in Naperville, we can certainly do that.
And Representative Grant, what do you think about all of that as well?
Well, our county sheriff in DuPage County wrote a statement on how he is not going to be willing to go into a business and arrest people. So, I mean, I assuredly think here in the state, in our county law enforcement, now whether Pritzker goes to the next step and overrides the county police department, then that's something different. I don't know whether he's going to send federal people in here or state people. I don't know.
And that was my question. Illinois State Police can supersede. So even if the DuPage County Sheriff says that he's not enforcing it, Pritzker could choose to send Illinois State Police in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'll go that far. I think that
He could, but that would be a political disaster for him. He's already, speaking of that, his polling when this first came out, and I don't govern by polls, but there's certainly a data point, it was 80% approval. He's now upside down. He's below 50%. So he went from being massively popular to not very much so. So if he brings law enforcement action in, unless it's really egregious, I think that's a gross miscalculation on his part.
I agree. Yeah.
And you both talked about the budget a few times. So predictions are the budget will get approved by the end of the week. And last year, the budget was introduced last minute with little time to review. Is this any different? Is there anything we can do to have more time to review it?
No, it's not any different. And this is part of the problem. Now, this one, I'll at least give some latitude that this is some extenuating circumstances. And I'm part of these working groups, but along partisan lines, we've been shut out pretty much. So there's been discussion of just handing the governor a lump sum budget and letting him figure it out, because the cuts at 35% are going to be draconian. But this is absolutely part of the problem in Springfield is we don't have sound financial planning. We don't look forward. We're always going from crisis to crisis. So last year I had literally about 20 minutes to review the budget before it was put in front of executive committee. I'm sure that'll be the case again. This go around, only it's going to be way worse. So, one of the things I've been advocating for since I first took office was we need to have a financial plan of 10 years that gets us where we are. Now, yes, COVID is an absolute curveball, but we should have contingency plans for when things go horribly wrong, and we don't. So I'll see the budget pretty much at the same time everybody else in the public does, the final budget. There were some bills that were moved out of rules yesterday. Rules Committee is where everything goes. All those bills were assigned to executives. So we're not going to have the typical committee hearing process where there's different, there's labor and commerce, there's all sorts of different committees. Everything's going through executive. I happen to sit on executive. It's myself, Keith Wheeler, Ryan Spain, Joe Sosnowski, and Representative Tim Butler on the Republican side. So everything's going to go through there. It will be a very interesting process, but the budget will be dropped pretty quickly. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of envious that Grant is on the executive committee and I'm not.
Careful what you wish for.
It would be exciting. I like to be involved. But anyhow, I think that just like last year, it was decided like in the evening. It was like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and going around with Madigan, and he's trying to get bipartisan, a bipartisan vote. And so we're wrangling around about this, but no, it'll be what it normally is. I understand. I agree with Grant. And we'll see what comes out of executive committee. And, with our revenues at 30% lower than they have been in the past, I think that we need to start doing some cutting in the state government. I think that there should be a tax, or excuse me, a hiring freeze. If someone quits, you just do without. Have someone else do. There's duplication in government. It just doesn't work all that well, and there should be a hiring freeze, no COLA. No, you don't just get 3% when we're in a 3% increase in your salary just in times like this. I think we need to, lead by example. And now I know this is going off. The budget is one thing. I'm going into another thing. So, but anyhow.
Well, but Amy, you're on point. All your businesses have had to adjust to this new reality that we're in. State of Illinois hasn't made a cut.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't furloughed anyone. In fact, we gave out $241 million in raises during all of this. So, it's irresponsible. Now, I feel for those workers that are due a raise, but right now that is just not the right way to go about it. We need all hands on deck trying to come up with solutions, not crater our economy even more.
And I do want to be cognizant of everybody's time. And I want to give you guys each one last chance to talk about, you know, what is your advice for our business owners? What is your guidance for our business owners? You know, we say we're all in this together and we are fighting, and I know the Chamber's fighting, but what can people continue to do to move the needle forward, to keep that hope?
So, you know, my dad said that attitude is everything. Having the positive attitude, especially times like this, is critical for us all. We are all in this together. That's 100% true. And it's, you know, it's hard times right now, but we will get through this. We will survive. We will get to a better place. You know, my friend Mark Kolkman is putting together, we don't want to get back to normal. We want to get back to better. That's the Naperville attitude that I love right there. So we're going to do this. So I will say, continue to advocate. You know, for the elected officials that weren't on this call, reach out to them. Be persistent. If they're ignoring or ducking or not taking calls, shame on them, and remember that. But continue to advocate. I put my my email in the group chat. My office phone number is there. As things come up, let me know what I can do to help. But I would say small business is truly the backbone of Naperville. It is something that, as we've grown from a small little farm town to where we are now, it is one of the major driving factors, and we can't do this without you. I know it's hard. Keep doing it. Keep plugging away. Let us know what we can do to help. If there's something specific that we can help with, whether it's unemployment or PPE or small business administration, things that quite honestly are outside of my purview, we're here to help. We're doing the best that we can, but please just keep the faith.
Right, I agree. Attitude is everything. Go about cheerfully, and treat people cheerfully. Drive cheerfully. There's a lot of people who are angry and upset. I went to get a swab because I was had to be tested for COVID-19 to go back to Springfield, and this man just. I was in line and he just cut in front of me in his car. It's like, are you mad? You just cut in front of someone in line. You know, so things like this are going on. I know people are unhappy, but we need to be happy. When a small business does decide to open, go in and you know, buy something, or encourage people to buy things from their small businesses. The hospitality industry is just becoming, it's a disaster. And I'm not just talking about Ma's and Pa's. I'm talking about the big hospitality chains like Let Us Entertain You. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, I mean, it's all being hurt. It's not just the Ma's and Pa's. It's big, you know, corporations that own numerous restaurants that are in downtown Naperville. Downtown Naperville is a thriving, wonderful, great place, and it will be a good place after this is all over with. And I think that we're going to see it coming to an end here. That's just my optimistic part.
So a good attitude.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in one last shameless plug. Over the next 3 days, if there's anything specifically legislatively that you want me to know, I'm going to give you my email, repworley@gmail.com. I will, you know, those go directly to my phone. I will do my best to, at the very least, read them. I may not respond, or if I do with just a got it, please understand that things move fast and furiously down there. But I need to hear from you. We all need to hear from you. repworley@gmail.com.
And thank you both for joining us, Representative Worley and Representative Grant. Thank you to our local elected officials, our city council members who joined us here today. Thank all of you for listening. I did want to reiterate, we did have other of your local legislators say they could make the call, some from the other side of the aisle as well, who had a last minute conflict. I think as Grant was saying earlier, things are moving at breakneck speed and going a million miles an hour. So just because you don't see them here doesn't mean our office isn't in contact with them. Huge thank you to Reba, who's our Director of Government Affairs, who is talking with Representative Worley, Representative Grant, and many of our other representatives, I think on a daily basis now. So nearly. And
I just wanted to say, do follow our social media. You'll see a copy, I'm sure, on Facebook today of our official board statement. You have a link there that Kelly Kaiser's just sent in the Zoom group chat with the names of your representatives and how to contact them. So please reach out to them. Listen to our message, and hopefully you can help build some momentum towards an end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thanks for having me.
Best of luck with your drive down 55.
Thanks.
Oh, you got that road. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Kim and Rua,